Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
It is my pleasure to welcome you to Temple Emeth and to our Shabbat Morning Service. It is my pleasure to welcome you here to the Rabbi Louis J. Siegel Sanctuary in Teaneck, New Jersey. A couple of notes before we get started. First of all, the Siddur that we use for this service is Mishkan Tefillah. If you are joining us on live stream and you have a copy of Mishkan Tefillah at home, now is the time to bring it to your computer or your screen so that you can follow along with our service, with every song, every prayer, and every page number, and be a full participant as we worship together today. Also, if you're joining us on live stream, I hope that you will take a moment to post something in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. It can be something as simple as your name, your location, or Shabbat Shalom. But in doing this, then others who are also joining us on live stream see that you are there, and we form bonds of virtual community in this way. If you are joining us here in person, I want to say Bruchim Haba'im to you. Finding a copy of Mishkan Tefillah is pretty easy for you. You should just be able to look at the slot right in front of your seat and find a copy so that you can participate in our service as well. Well, with that said, it is my pleasure to invite you to turn to page 192 in Mishkan Tefillah. Page 192 as we look to Cantor Tillim and we join together in singing our opening song, Ma Tovu.
Ma Tovu, Ma Tovu, Alecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael, Vani berov chastecha, Yisrael, Adonai avti me'on beitecha u'mekol mishkan kvodecha mishkan kvodecha v'ani ashtachaveh Vani tefilati lecha Adonai adrotin Elohim berov chasdecha Elohim berov chasdecha Haneni be'emet ish echa
We turn in our Siddur to page 194. Please join with me in the blessing, thanking God for the miracle of the body. Praise to you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who formed the human body with skill, creating the body's many pathways and openings. It is well known before your throne of glory that if one of them be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, who heals all flesh, working wondrously. Baruch ata Adonai, rofeh chol basar, umafli la'asot. Having offered the blessing for the body, we turn the page to 196, and we offer the blessing thanking God for the miracle of the soul. My God, the soul you have given me is pure. You created it, you shaped it, you breathed it into me, and you protect it within me. For as long as my soul is within me, I offer thanks to you, Adonai, my God and God of my ancestors, source of all creation, sovereign of all souls. Praised are you, Adonai, in whose hand is every living soul and the breath of humankind. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biado nefesh kol chai, veruach kol basar ish. We turn to page 198. Please join in the Nisim B'chol Yom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan l'sech vivina levchin ben yom uvein laila. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam pokeach ivrim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam matir asurim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam zokev kifufim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam marok haaretz al hamayim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam amechlin mitzadik gaver. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam malbish arumim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam anoten lo ya'ef koach. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavir shina meinai utnuma me'afapai. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani b'tzelem Elohim. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani bat chorin. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shasani Yisrael. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Uzer Yisrael bigvura. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam oter Yisrael b'tifara.
We turn to page 204 and we join together in the blessing for the study of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. O Adonai, our God, let the words of Torah be sweet in our mouths and the mouths of your people Israel, so that we, our descendants, and the descendants of all your people Israel, may know you by studying your Torah for its own sake. Blessed are you, Adonai, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, hamelamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. Having offered the blessing for the study of Torah, we turn now to page 206, and we offer a section of oral Torah in fulfillment of this blessing. We read together, "These are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. But the study of Torah encompasses them all." We continue now on page 215, where we find Ashrae, the acrostic psalm. We offer Ashrae responsively. Ashrae yoshvei beitecha od yehalelucha selah.
Ashrae ha'am shekacha lo, Ashrae ha'am she'Adonai Elohav.
Tehillah leDavid aramimcha Elohai hamelech, v'avarcha shimcha leolam va'ed.
B'chol yom avarcheka, v'halala shimcha leolam va'ed.
Gadol Adonai umehulal me'od, v'ligdulato ein cheker.
Dor l'dor yishavach ma'asecha, u'gvuratecha yagidu.
Hadar kavod hodecha, v'yifnei niflotecha asicha.
V'zuz noratecha yomeru, dudatcha asaprena.
Zecher rav tuvcha yabi'u, v'tzidchatcha yiranenu.
Chanun v'rachum Adonai, erech ha'payim ulto chesed.
Tov Adonai lakol, v'rachamav al kol ma'asav.
Yoduch Adonai kol ha'ma'asecha, v'chasidecha yivachucha.
Kevod malchutcha yomeru, uvratecha yidaberu.
Leodia libnei Adam gvurotav, u'chvod Adam malchuto.
Shemcha malchut kol olamim umemshaltecha bechol dor v'ador.
Somech Adonai l'chol hanoflim v'zokiv l'chol akfufim.
Einecho elecha yisaberu v'atanoten lehem et ochlam be'ito.
Poteach et yadecha umaspia l'chol chai ratzon.
Tzadik Adonai bechol derachav v'chasid bechol ma'asav.
Karov Adonai l'chol korav l'chol asher yikra'u be'emet.
Ritzon Yoreav Yaseh v'et Shavatam Yishma v'Yoshi'em.
Shomer Adonai kol ohava v'kol hashayim yashvid.
Tilat Adonai daber pi v'varech kol basar shem kodsho le'olam va'ed.
V'anachnu nevarech ya me'ata v'ad olam hallelujah.
We continue on page 223. Correction, page 222. O God, in the power of your strength, great in the glory of your name, mighty forever, awesome in amazing deeds, the ruler who sits on a high and exalted throne. O God, your name is holy and exalted. The psalmist has said, rejoice in Adonai, you righteous, praise suits the upright. In the mouth of the upright you will be praised, and in the words of the righteous you will be blessed. In the tongue of the faithful you will be exalted, and in the midst of the holy you will be sanctified. In the multitude of choirs of your people, the house of Israel, your name is to be glorified in joy in every generation, O our sovereign. We turn the page for Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadosh Shemei Rabbah Be'amad v'achirutei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei T'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'gala Uvizman kari v'meru Amen Yesh Shemei Rabbah mivorach Le'olam olam e'amaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yidbar v'yitrom v'yitnasei V'yitala Shemei Kudisha B'richu Leila min chaberchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechemata Damiran be'alma V'imiru Amen.
Please rise if you are able for the Baruch, page 226.
Baruch et Adonai hamivarach. Baruch Adonai hamivarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam Yotzer or uvorei choshech, oseh shalom uvorei et hakol. Hameir la'aretz v'ladarim aleha brachamim. Uvtuvo mechadesh bechol yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit. Ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai, kulam b'chochma asita, mal'ah ha'aretz kinyanecha. Titbarach Adonai Eloheinu, al shevach ma'aseh yadecha ve'al me'orei or she'asita yifa'arucha selah. Or Chadash al Zion Ta'ir, v'niskechu lanu mehira le'oro. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer ha-me'orot. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said. And light-blinded we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote, we reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us. As we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai habocher be'amo Yisrael be'ahava.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Aved.
Please be seated.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך Bishinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam. B'shivtecha b'beitecha u'v'lechtecha v'derech u'v'shokbecha u'v'kumecha u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha v'ayu letotafot b'neinecha u'chtavtam al mizuzot beitecha u'v'isharecha Leman tizkiru v'asitab et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'elohechem Ani Adonai Elohechem Asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liot lachem le'elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem Adonai Elohechem Emet.
We turn to page 239. Emet, there is no place where you are not. Even in the wilderness there is your word. Emet, that penstrokes of lightning, white fire, black flame, stir the soul's passion, guide our sacred way. True and enduring is Torah. Your truth for us is certain and established now and forevermore. Like Moses, Miriam, and all Israel, we sing out and rejoice.
Mi chamacha b'elim Adonai, mi chamacha nedar b'kodesh, narati hilot osefela. Shira chadasha, shibechu ge'alim l'shimecha al tzfat hayam, yachad kulam hodu, v'himlichu ve'ameru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Zu Yisrael, kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, ufdechenu mecha, Yuda v'Yisrael, ga'aleni Adonai tzvot shema, kedosh Yisrael, baruch atah Adonai, gal Yisrael.
We continue on page 242 with the tefillah. Please rise if you are able for the tefillah.
Adonai sepatai tiftachu fi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, v'Elohei avoteinu v'imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Akol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Gula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo Be'ava, Melech Ozer, U'Mashiach U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Bezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayei kol atarav le'oshia, Morid atal, Mechalkel chayim bechesed, Mechayei kol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rof becholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar, Micham b'cha bal gvurot, Umido melech, Melech memit umechayeh, Umatmiach Yeshua v'nemanata l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayei akul.
Yikadesh et shimcha ba'olam kishem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom. Kakatuv al yad v'yecha v'karazeh el zeh ve'amar.
Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzvaot, Melech haaretz kvodo.
Adir, Adirenu, Adonai, Adonenu, Ma'adir Shimcha b'chol haaretz.
Baruch kivod Adonai mimekomo.
Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu, hu Malkeinu, hu Mosheinu, hu Yashmeinu Barachamav le'enei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Yimelech Adonai le'olam, Elohai Tzion, l'dor v'ador, hallelujah. L'dor v'ador, l'dor v'ador, nagid God lecha. L'dor v'ador, l'dor v'ador, nagid God lecha. U'lenetzach netzachim, kedushatcha nakdish, kedushatcha nakdish. V'shivchach Eloheinu mipinu lo yamush, le'olam le'olam va'el. L'dor v'ador, l'dor v'ador, nagid God lecha. L'dor v'ador, nagid God lecha. Baruch atah Adonai, ha'el hakadosh.
Please be seated. We turn at this time to page 250. To honor Shabbat, we look to the middle of the page and we join together in singing V'shamru.
V'shamru b'nai Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asut et ha-Shabbat le'dorotam b'rit olam. Et hashamayim v'taretz uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash uvayom hashvi Shabbat vayinafash.
Please turn to page 255. We read together in the middle of the page. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer to life, to peace, and to joy. May we find true rest, holiness in our deeds, worth in our study of Torah. Let us feed on the love of goodness. Let us drink from the love of goodness. Restrain our thirst for excess and cleanse our hearts to serve life well. On this holy Shabbat, may we draw nearer in life, in peace, and in joy. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otcha levadecha b'yirah na'avod. We turn now to page 258, where we find a prayer for peace. Grant peace, goodness, and blessing, grace, kindness, and mercy to us and to all your people Israel. Bless us, our Creator, all of us together, through the light of your presence. Truly through the light of your presence, Adonai, our God, you gave us a Torah of life, the love of kindness, justice, and blessing, mercy, life, and peace. May you see fit to bless your people Israel at all times, at every hour, with your peace. Praised are you, Adonai, who blesses your people Israel with peace. Baruch atah Adonai, hamvarech et amo Yisrael. Ba shalom. We take a moment now for Tfilat Halev. Inspirational readings for this time of introspection are found on pages 260 and 261.
Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tov v'veracha. Sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha. Ya la 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 ya la 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 ya alam, ya la 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 yam bay, ya la la sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, sim, 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 shalom, tova uveracha.
We continue at this time with our Torah service on page 363. Happy is the one who finds wisdom, the one who gains understanding. For its value is greater than silver, its yield than fine gold. It is more precious than rubies. No treasure can match it. We turn to the middle of the next page. Please rise. In this scroll is the secret of our people's life from Sinai until now. Its teaching is love and justice, goodness and hope. Freedom is its gift to all who treasure it.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonai, Kadosh Shema, Kadosh Adonai Ti, Unirabimo Shema Yachtav, Lecha Adonai Hagidera, Yagivera, Yatifet, Yanetzach God, Ki Cho Bashamayim Uvaretz, Ki Cho Bashamayim Uvaretz, Lecha Adonai Mamlachet, Yamid Nosei, Lechol Erosh. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'har kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Adonai Eloheinu ve'ishtachavu le'hakadosh.
Please be seated. This week's Torah portion is a combined portion of Matot and Maseh. They are the two final portions in the book of Numbers. And Cantor Tillman, in just a moment, will be reading from the Maseh, the second half of the combined portion, at Numbers chapter 35, verse 1. The Levites are one of the 12 tribes, but they are different than the other tribes. They are the holy tribe, the tribe of Moses and Aaron, the tribe that is responsible for the ritual and spiritual life of the nation. And so for that reason, there are two exceptions in their status as one of the tribes. One exception is that they are not counted, nor are they expected to serve in the military. And the other is that they don't have an ancestral land holding like the other tribes. That having been said, they get land. They get cities. They get pasture land, mainly to take care of maybe the many, many animals that would have been donated to the sanctuary that need to be cared for until their final purpose for the sanctuary is reached. And they have towns. And so this section of the Torah is about the towns that the Levites can live in. And as we read through the chapter, specifically that there are 6 cities of refuge. The purpose of the cities of refuge is that people who have accidentally killed someone may flee there, so to be safe from, the translation is the blood avenger. In other words, there was not an established system of justice to punish someone who committed manslaughter, accidentally killed someone, and therefore there was a sense that the victim's family would exact retribution. That kind of retribution, while understandable, was meant to be avoided, and the main way the Torah avoids it is by creating a city of refuge, or 6 cities of refuge for these individuals to live in, to be protected. So that's the background behind Numbers chapter 35. If you'd like to follow along, you can do so here in the sanctuary in the large original Torah commentaries on page 1244. And if you're watching on live stream and you have a copy of the revised Torah commentary at home, you can find Numbers chapter 35 verse 1 on page 1123.
Yeah, got it.
Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol hamim vatan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayidaber Adonai El Moshe baravot Moav al Yarden Yerecha lemor Tzav et bnei Yisrael v'natnu lalvim minachalat achuzatem arim lashavet umigrosh larim svivotehem titnu lalvim v'hayu arim lahem lashavet umigroshehem yiyu libhem tam ulir chosham lechol chayatam.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah Emet v'chai olam natan b'tuchenu Baruch atah Adonai noten lat haTorah.
Amen.
This time our thoughts turn to those in need of healing as we prepare to offer a Baruch for healing found in the Siddur on page 371. If you are thinking of someone in need of healing and you're watching us on live stream, I invite you to enter the name of your loved one in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. And if you are here in the sanctuary, I invite you to share the name of your loved one in need of healing out loud or in your heart. We think as well of the many people injured or displaced by the flooding in Kentucky this week. Our temple members in need of healing and their loved ones will appear on your screen as we join together now in singing the Baruch.
Mikol habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikol habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuge shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
We continue now with the lifting and dressing of the Torah on page 370 at the bottom of the page. Please rise if you're able for Hagba and Galila. Okay. Drag it about halfway off the table. There we go. A little bit more. Okay, bend your knees. Get all the way under it.
V'zat haTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael ki Adonai biyad Moshe. Yalalai 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 yalalai
Please be seated. The Haftarah portion is found beginning on page 1283. This is the second of the three Haftarot of rebuke or Haftarot of admonition in these 3 weeks leading up to Tisha B'Av. And nobody does rebuke better than Jeremiah. I will give him that. He is our lead gold medalist rebuking prophet. So much so that in the interest of time and not feeling too rebuked, I'm going to ask Rachel to start not at the very beginning, but in the middle at verse 13. So once again, it's page 1283 in the original Torah commentary here in the sanctuary. If you are on live stream, then you can find the same section beginning at Jeremiah chapter 2, verse 13 on page 1136. Here's the funny thing, people watching on live stream. The Revised Plout commentary is missing the last two verses in contrast to the original Plout commentary. Why? I don't know. But it means that if you're watching at home and you have the Revised commentary, it means that right after you think you're done, you have to keep listening to Rachel read because she has two verses. And, me being suspicious, I would speculate that they are the most two important verses. Well, we can judge that later. That having been said, I think we're ready for the Haftarah. So I should have mentioned earlier that Eric Zaretsky honored us with the Torah blessings, and now we call upon Rachel Eastman to honor us with the reading of the Haftarah.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim v'ratza v'divreihem hane'amarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah uv'Moshe avdo Uv-Yisrael amo, uv-Invi'ei ha'emet b'tzedek.
Amen.
13. For my people have done a twofold wrong. They have forsaken me, the fount of living waters, and hewed them out cisterns, broken cisterns, which cannot even hold water. Is Israel a bondman? Is he a homeborn slave? Then why is he given over to plunder? Lions have roared over him, have raised their cries. They have made his land a waste, his cities desolate, without inhabitants. Those two in Noph and Tapenet will lay bare your head. See, that is the price you have paid for forsaking the Lord your God, while he led you in the way. What then is the good of your going to Egypt to drink the waters of the Nile? And what is the good of your going to Assyria to drink the waters of the Euphrates? Let your misfortune reprove you. Let your afflictions rebuke you. Mark well how bad and bitter it is that you forsake the Lord your God. That awe for me is not in you, declares the Lord of hosts. For long ago you broke your yoke, tore off your yoke bands, and said, I will not work. On every high hill and under every verdant tree you recline as a whore. I planted you with noble vines, all with choicest seed. Alas, I find you changed into a base and alien vine. Though you wash with natron and use much lye, your guilt is ingrained before me, declares the Lord God. How can you say, I am not defiled, I have not gone after the Baalim? Look at your deeds in the valley, consider what you have done, like a lustful she-camel restlessly running about, or like a wild ass used to the desert, snuffing the wind in her eagerness, whose passion none can restrain, none that seek her need grow weary. In her season they'll find her. Save your foot from going bare and your throat from thirst. But you say it is no use. No, I love the strangers, and after them I must go. Like a thief chagrined when he is caught, so is the house of Israel chagrined. They, their kings, their officers, and their priests and prophets. They said to wood, you are my father, to stone, you gave birth to me, while to me they turned their backs and not their faces. But in their hour of calamity they cry, arise and save us. And where are those gods you made for yourself? Let them arise and save you if they can, in your hour of calamity, for your gods have become, O Judah, as many as your towns. Just now you called to me, Father, you are the guide of my youth. If you return, O Israel, declares the Lord, if you return to me, if you remove your abominations from my presence and do not waver, and swear as the Lord lives, in sincerity, justice, and righteousness, nations shall bless themselves by you and praise themselves by you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzur kol haolamim, tzadik b'chol hadorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'medaber u'mekayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah v'al ha'avodah, v'al hanvim v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, Shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu liktusha v'limnucha lichavod ultifaret al hakol Adonai Eloheinu anachnu modim lach umvarchim otach yitbarach shimcha b'ficha chai tamid leolam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. We continue now as we prepare to return the Torah to the Ark. Please turn in your Siddur to page 374. We rise. Okay, in the middle of the bima and face the congregation. Yehalelu et Shem Adonai ki niskav shemo levado.
Hodo aleret v'shamayim v'yaren keren le'amo tehila l'chol chazida l'imei Yisrael am kirava Hallelujah Hallelujah Ki lekatov natati lachem Torati al tazov et chaimi lamachazikim ba v'tom leha mehoshar deracheha darcheinom v'chol netivoteha shalom shalom hashivenu Adonai elech v'nashova chadesh yamenu kikedem.
Please be seated. Do you want to stay up here for the announcements? It's not for like 15 minutes, but you can. Last year, Congress passed an infrastructure package that authorized $1 trillion in spending. When Congress was debating the bill, we heard a lot about the horse trading in the House and Senate, about how many jobs would be created, and whether Republicans would vote against an issue that had for decades had bipartisan support. We heard about high-speed trains and aging bridges. We imagined gleaming new airports and smooth modern roads. Rarely, though, did we hear about justice. And yet infrastructure spending and justice cannot be separated. Robert Moses is a classic example. As he implemented his vision for New York City, he favored cars over public transit. He bulldozed Black and Latino neighborhoods to build his roads and parks. And according to some historians, he even made his bridges extra low so that public buses carrying poor New Yorkers would not be able to go under them to reach the city's bridges. There's no doubt that Robert Moses beautified New York City, but looking back at history, we have to ask, at what moral cost? A similar mindset was brought to bear a century earlier as Central Park was being planned and designed in the 1840s and 1850s. While that part of Manhattan was not densely populated, neither was it completely vacant. When a few white, wealthy landowners filed suit to block the creation of the park on their land, the map was redrawn to include Seneca Village, a section of New York populated by approximately 225 African Americans. It was a stable community, with the average length of residence being 22 years. When the Black residents of Seneca Village filed a suit of their own, they lost. The legal battle took years, but in 1857, the residents were forced out of their homes, churches, and other institutions, and those buildings were razed to make for Central Park. I mention these stories to illustrate that there is a moral dimension to infrastructure. It is about more than roads or jobs or aesthetics. Infrastructure at its heart is about access. Who can access jobs or schools or recreation? And equally importantly, will the access accorded to one group unfairly limit access to another? The Torah understands there is a moral element to infrastructure. In Genesis chapter 26, Isaac begins digging wells near Gerar. There's a dispute over the ownership of the wells. In other words, who will have access to them? And Isaac ends up digging 7 wells before everyone involved is satisfied. One can argue that Isaac as a foreigner was encroaching on land that people there longer would have claimed as their own. You can also argue that Isaac was bullied into relinquishing the wells that he and his servants had dug. Either way, it is clear that Isaac would rather ensure that the water infrastructure serves everyone than fighting to ensure that only he has enough. Infrastructure arises again in the Torah when the non-Israelite prophet Balaam is standing on a mountaintop looking at the Israelite encampment. He stands to earn a lot of money if he can just bring himself to curse the Israelites. Instead, he says, "Ma tovu ohalecha Yaakov, mishkanotecha Yisrael." How beautiful are your tents, O Jacob, your dwelling places, O Israel. One could argue that tents are not infrastructure because they are by definition temporary. But after seeing the temporary sheds that sprang up during the pandemic to facilitate outdoor dining, complete with light and heat, we can say that temporary dwellings are a form of infrastructure in that they grant and limit access and impact the surrounding area. Back then to Balaam's blessing that was supposed to be a curse. One commentary says that what made the tents good in Balaam's eyes was that the tent openings were all pointed in the same direction. No one's tent looked directly into anyone else's, so everyone had a modicum of privacy. Access to privacy is a social good that helps maintain healthy family relationships. This brings us finally to this week's Torah portion. The Levites are apportioned 42 cities, of which 6 are to be designated as cities of refuge. People who have accidentally committed homicide can flee there and be safe from an angry or grieving family member. It makes little economic sense to plan 6 cities in this way. But the Torah is making a statement that as a developing society, the Israelite community must prevent blood feuds that could last generations. Even if it lacks a court system that has the power to protect the vulnerable, it can use infrastructure toward this same goal. Centuries before Central Park or Robert Moses, the Torah wants cities to be built on a foundation of justice and compassion. Individuals who have made terrible mistakes can have access, but the people who mean them harm cannot. As a community charged with the pursuit of justice, we must be vigilant as the $1 trillion allocated by Congress is spent on infrastructure in the next several years. Do the projects help the poor with investments in things like mass transit? Is pollution decreased, and does the remaining pollution affect all neighborhoods equally? Is access available to all, since everyone is paying for it, or only to the select few? These are the questions we must ask, and we must demand acceptable answers. As in generations past, infrastructure planning has the potential to make our neighborhoods and our cities more beautiful and more efficient. It also has the potential to pick winners and losers. In a land where everyone is equal under the law, we must all benefit when the government builds something new. Shabbat Shalom. Our service continues now with the Aleinu. The Aleinu is found in Mishkan Tefillah on page 586 at the bottom of the page. Please rise if you are able for the Aleinu.
Aleinu l'shabeach Adon ha'chol la'techidu la'liotzer b'reshit shelo sana kiboye aratzot v'lo samanu k'mishpot adama shelo sam cholkeinu kahem v'goravenu kichol amonam va'anachnu koreim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu V'ne'emar V'haya Adonai Lemelech al kol haaretz Bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad U'shema echad.
You may be seated. We continue on page 593. In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love are we comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you. This Shabbat, we remember those for whom we're in the Shloshim 30-day period of mourning. Esther Kossakoff, mother of Wendy Kossakoff, Jerome Spiller, friend of Peter Wallach, and Shirley Starr, aunt of Randy Breston. We remember as well those whose yard sites occurred this week. Max Baer, Herbie Bias, Bernard Chaliff, Sylvia Drossman, Paul Horowitz, Florence Kaufman, Israel Nick Mandelkern, Kate Raymer, Suzanne Pearl, Rudolph Seiss, Charles Schimmel, Charles Sobel, Alvin Subin, Dvorah Zuckerman, Svetlana Walters, and Alice Zimmerman. We remember the names of 6 of the 6 million who perished in the Holocaust. Hans Aaron of Germany, age 11, Agnes Aronowicz of France, age 8, Kalman Aronowicz of France, age 13, Clement Aronowicz of France, age 12, Albert Aronowicz of France, age 10, and Helene Aronowicz of France, age 15. We mourn those lost in the flooding in Kentucky this week and in other natural disasters. We take them into our hearts with our own as we turn to page 598. Please rise if you are able as we join together in the Mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah Be'alma divrach Yerutei v'yamlich malchutei B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala v'yizman kariv imru. Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mivorach Leolam Ulalmei Almaya Yitzbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal Shemei d'kudsha b'rechu La'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah min Shemaya v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. May the source of peace and peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. And let us say, Amen. Please be seated. It is my pleasure at this time to call upon Eric Zaretsky, a member of our Board of Trustees, to offer Shabbat greetings and announcements.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
On behalf of the Board of Trustees, it's my pleasure to welcome you to our Shabbat morning service. Shabbat services continue through the summer every Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. and most Friday evenings at 8 p.m. We will have another Kabbalat Shabbat service on Zoom on August 12th at 6 p.m. and prayers on the Palisades August 19th at 6:30 p.m. with a picnic at 6 p.m. Watch your weekly email for details. The Social Action Committee is seeking volunteers to write postcards with the Religious Action Center as part of the Reclaim Our Vote campaign run by the Center for Common Ground. To help out, meet at Temple Emeth on Wednesday, August 3rd at 5:30 p.m. For more information, contact Lynn Chaikin. Finally, summer is a great time to join our adult choir. There's no audition, you just have to want to make music. Contact Carol Shansky for more information. Thank you this morning to this morning's volunteers in the live stream control room. Nikki and Doug Folk are at the controls. Shabbat Shalom.
Well, Cantor, I'm glad you're back. I mean, you had a well-deserved vacation, that much is true, but do you know that I have stood at your podium 3 times?
I saw
in the
that.
I was hoping you didn't
way,
see it.
I didn't look it up on the live stream because I was scared. I just saw it in writing and it was enough for me.
Yes. So I did my best. Don't watch the video, though.
You know what, Rabbi? You have a very nice voice.
Thank you.
For a rabbi.
We've reached the point where we're going to do Kiddush and Motzi. If you're watching us on live stream, you can bring your Kiddush cup and challah or bread to your computer or screen. And if you are able, I invite you, please, to rise for the Kiddush.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Amen. L'chaim.
And we join together in the Motzi.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
We've reached the conclusion of our service. If you've been watching us on live stream, it is your last chance to post something in the chat or comment section of the live stream platform. Perhaps you want to conclude with the same words with which we in the sanctuary will now greet one another. We turn to one another and we say,
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay,